Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with soulful jazz vocalist Sharon Marie Cline. Born in LA, but hailing from Jacksonville, Florida, she always brings a unique and distinguished sense of jazz history to her song stylings. She performs at festivals, jazz clubs, and special events around the world. Over the years, she has shared the stage with jazz greats like Nancy Wilson, Tony Bennett, and Chris Botti. She gets into how she slowed down during COVID, her career, and the future ahead with live shows and brand new music. Enjoy this interview.
Thanks for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
Before we get into your life as a vocalist, I want to know, as an artist and a musician, how did you survive COVID? How did that time period change you now that we're reemerging out of it?
I survived it pretty well. Interestingly enough, right before COVID began, I kind of worked pretty steadily, like before the years. So I've worked, a couple of times a week, and I was getting burnt out, to be honest. I wasn't feeling as inspired, so I was planning on taking a little bit of a break and just kind of going inward instead of being so performance-based to try to be creative-based, because I just wasn't finding the time to connect. So ironically, as COVID began, I had already begun my internal retreat. So yes, I wasn't working, but it didn't knock me on my butt as it did for some of my friends who were needing and wanting to continually be working. So what it did for me is I had the opportunity to really get reacquainted with myself and my creative urges and my impulses. So it afforded me the time to write more, create more arrangements, find creative ways to make music. Like, I record from my house. My piano player does his and his. The bass, we send out the tracks to the bass player. He adds his part. So we started learning creative ways of still communing. So I don't know, how do I answer that in a short answer?
That's it.
Okay. That was the long answer.
Well, no, and that's totally, that's great. It's almost as though that time kind of fell in your lap. And I'm curious, any new music that you've put out, anything on the horizon now that things are opening up and kind of getting back to the way they were?
Yeah, I just released on Friday my new single, Love Will Follow. It just dropped on all digital platforms this past Friday, October 7th. And it's not a new tune, but it's a remake of a Kenny Loggins tune from the 80s that we revamped. I call this thing I do with my one of my music directors, we call it deranging. It's because we obviously make a new arrangement, but we breathe new life into an older song, whether it was popular or not. But if it touched me in a certain way, we take a song and we just kind of deconstruct it and derange it.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah. So we did that with Love Will Follow.
So you're originally from Jacksonville, Florida, and I'm curious, talk to me a little bit about your childhood and how the seeds of music and singing started for you.
Okay, yeah. For clarity, I was born in Los Angeles, but I grew up in Jacksonville. Still, growing up in Jacksonville, I would say the pace was slower. Wait, ask me the question again. What's the question? You're curious what?
Just about your childhood and kind of how the seeds of music and singing began for you.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, they began when I was out here because I started singing in school, and my first experience performing was in 6th grade in the school musical, which was Babes in Toyland. So I played Little Bo Peep, and that's kind of when I got the bug of really enjoying the process of learning the music and all the tech rehearsals and creating, the piece that we were working on. And then all of a sudden it was ready and we were performing for an audience, and just that charge of being in front of an audience and being appreciated. I played Little Bo Peep, so I got to sing a little song. So in 6th grade, that's kind of when that kind of lit the bug for me. However, musically, I sang in church choirs and in school, and that kind of kept pushing and re-inspiring my love for the music. My mom also, when I was a kid, the way that she kind of got me to do the chores around the house was that she would put on old records, like old jazz records, old torch singers, and that's how I did my chores, was alongside Dakota Staton or the Count Basie Orchestra or Dexter Gordon, Frank Sinatra. I'm like, fly me to the moon, dust in the chandelier, that kind of thing. So I grew up with that encouragement through her love of music. There was something about the music of jazz and of those, that era in the 50s and the 40s, 50s, that sparked my imagination. So it made it fun for me. So I would imagine myself in the middle of one of the torch songs, or in the middle of Nancy Wilson's Guess Who I Saw Today, even though I really didn't know what it was about back then. Something about it, would always spark my imagination about who she's talking to and what she's saying. And so I credit my mom with that inspiration.
So did you always know that you wanted to be a performer, or were there other dreams that you had growing up?
Oh, let's see. Yeah, I think I did always want to be a performer. The only other thing I would always could imagine if I fantasized was like being like the head of a corporation, like just like on the top of my game, the biggest corporation, like being a real influencer in that way. That was a kid's dream, but that would be the only other thing. I like that jet-setting lifestyle that I imagined that it was, and also being able to call all the shots. I like that story. In a way, I am that in the business of Sharon Marie Cline. I am my own businesswoman. So it's good to have that kind of impulse when you're trying to survive in this industry, because it is a business. But really, I've always really wanted to sing and act. I always wanted to find a way to express what was going on inside with others. Even as a kid, I would write little plays from my cousins and my sister and I to act out, and we'd act it out for the family. And, I'd have dramatic scenes, and we'd always sing a song. If they weren't original songs, we'd do, songs that are popular or that we grew up hearing, like What the World Needs Now, is Love, Sweet Love, things like that. We would sing that. I have recordings of us singing those songs for our family. So I've always wanted to perform.
So what was the first live show that you ever saw that blew you away?
Let me think on that. I mean, as a kid, I didn't get to go see a lot of pop stars live shows, except for the Jackson 5. I remember seeing that. That blew me away, which I don't know if I want that in the article, but that blew me away because of the spectacle of it. Just everyone being so tantalized by them, and just the energy in the audience. I'm trying to think of someone else. That's what, as a really, really, really young girl. That's why I was trying to give you the first one. I think that's the first the first concert I ever went to. It's a young girl that really, I don't know why I can't think of anything right now. It's so weird. Because there's so many. There's just so many concerts that I've gone to. But it's more like, Barbara Streisand. I got to see her in concert a few times. Elton John I've seen in concert. And all those concerts drew me in. And then I saw a lot of musical theater growing up. I'd say Broadway always leaves such a deep impression on me because of the way that the bigness of it all still draws you in. And I loved seeing, there's always been something, even as a child, even in that first musical that I did, Babes in Toyland, something about really understanding the process of a performer and knowing that they did all that work and and knowing from the inside out of it, all the failures to actually get to the success, and then seeing it on stage and it's just larger than life and magical. That's always impressed me and, encouraged me to keep doing this magical thing about creating an experience for an audience. And I think I've kind of carried that through in how I perform as an artist. I'm not a big spectacle, but I do, when I am doing a set, it's not just about singing music, it's about creating experience through my emotion, through my presentation, through my communication, through the music we choose and the way that we choose to treat each song. It is about, and the way we design our sets, it is about creating an experience.
So obviously the culmination of what you do is getting on stage and delivering that you just described, but there's a lot of components that go into being a professional musician. Over the years, what has been the most enjoyable part of being a professional musician for you?
Collaborating. I think. It's kind of a tie between collaborating and delivering, actually. But, that interplay between each musician that I'm working with, and as we're developing a song or rehearsing and finding the nuances and the deep listening that must happen to create authentically, I really enjoy that to the depth of my soul, because it keeps everything fresh and new. And it's always, always organic and authentic if you're working from that perspective. So collaborating with each other and finding new ways of expressing is amazing for me. Also the collaboration of when I'm up there performing what we're tuning into and authentically, organically creating, then the feeding off of the audience. It's kind of like those levels and those streams of energy really, really excite me. And when I show up at my best doing that, that's what keeps me going. Like really listening to my band, sharing with the audience what comes through me, really receiving what's coming back, and then it like cycling through and us continually recreating the moment. When I hit that mark, there's nothing more glorious, there's nothing more fulfilling, and it keeps me going. So
you've had the chance to perform around some big names, Tony Bennett, Nancy Wilson. There's been a lot of names that you've been around. What have you learned from the legends of singing and of this craft that's in turn helped you when you're around younger musicians? What do you try to give to them when you get around them? Yeah, I really learned, I'll go from each one and then I'll say what I share. From Tony Bennett, I learned just how to step out of the way and just be in my joy. I never met anyone who just emanated the joy when he performed. From Nancy Wilson, it was like she always made her mark. She met her mark. She knew from beginning to end what she was doing. There wasn't a lot of ad-libbing. She was very precise, very precise. And from Chris Botti, he was just extremely musical. He was always in the pocket, in the flow, in his element. And so what I would say is all of them taught me, one, how to really be present, but also be grounded. None of them were winging it. None of them were scattered. If they were nervous, I know they must have been, but it was like an excitement. And so they always taught me to turn that around into excitement, into joy, and actually just hold on to your professionalism. And that's what I would share with anyone younger than me is
Really, and they all were authentically different and knew themselves. They were never trying to be anyone else. And that is one thing that I would want to share with, I always share with younger people, is really, really stay true to you. Breathe and find a way to make the fear into to joy, and show up. Just show up. Show up and don't miss your mark.
Of all these years of being a professional and living this life, you know, you've gained a lot of wisdom, and I'm curious if you had a dream tonight and you run into the younger version of yourself around the time that you were starting to become a professional, and you could give your younger version a piece of advice based on what you've learned throughout your life, what would you tell your young version?
Give yourself a break. Don't be so hard on you, and you really are good. I spent so much of my younger life wondering if I had any talent. Always doubting. And I think I would just really reassure myself that you've got something to say. You are good, or you wouldn't be having these opportunities, and to trust yourself. I wish I trusted myself more. I think I would have flown higher faster if I did.
So everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, but ultimately you live your life. You have a perception of who you are. Who do you think you are?
A pretty cool chick.
I like it.
Yeah, I'm a pretty cool chick. I'm loving. I'm giving. I'm funny. I'm really smart. I appreciate the wisdom of my years, and I tap into it greatly. And I'm also extremely flawed, and I think that's cool. I like my flaws now.
So, Sharon, if anybody out there wants to pick up your music, learn more about you, any live gigs, anything going on, where's the best place for them to go to do that? SharonMarieCline.com, and obviously it's CLINE for Cline. That's the best place. You'll find everything on there. I have a blog that I've just started. I also have a podcast about my philosophy about navigating with your heart, always following your heart, letting that kind of be the compass of your life, that I think is insightful and supportive to artists and human beings alike. My music is there, all my concerts, my story, SharonMarieCline.com. And all the reviews and your interview will be there too. I love it. This is wonderful. Sharon, thank you for opening up. Good luck with everything as the world kind of opens up and things start getting a little bit louder. And I appreciate your time today. Good luck with everything.
Thank you so much, Jazz. You take care.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players and singers in Florida, Los Angeles, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Sharon for her time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz, all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends. I want to tip you off to a wonderful program I found out about. As we expand our reach, we have made some friends out there in the world that love jazz as much as we do. This program is fully endorsed by Neon Jazz.
Gerald Albright, Rhea Schneider, Charlie Hunter, Duke Robillard, Sean Jones, Walter Beasley, Steve Swallow. Something Came from Baltimore is a jazz, blues, and R&B podcast and radio show, and it's not really about Baltimore. Subscribe to the podcast and listen to your favorite artist or future favorite artist. That's Something Came from Baltimore. And be a part of that Be More music scene. Joe Lovano, Jeff Coffin, Paula Cole, Danuzo Makatani, Ann Passio, Ches Smith, Thumbscrew.
Neon Jazz.